Hello and welcome to Witchy Wellness Radio. I'm your host, Lauren Chalantani, women's holistic health coach and fellow recovering perfectionist. This podcast was created to show you that your body is not in the way, it is actually leading your way. Hello, everybody, and happy holidays. You are listening to episode 78, Functional Medicine Coaching with Dr. Sandra Scheinbaum. And today's episode is brought to you by Living the Good Life Naturally, Magnesium. Now, I had the beautiful founder of this company, Kristen Bowen, on episode 73, that's 73, Maximizing Your Health with Magnesium, if you want to learn more. And if you're interested in purchasing some magnesium products, click the show link below. Make sure you use the code WITCHY, WITCHY, for 10% off your offer. So today's episode with Dr. Sandra Scheinbaum is so amazing. This woman is who I want to be when I grow up. She founded the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy at age 65, and when most people start to retire. And she's had so many different careers, including over 35 years of a clinical psychologist. And now she helps train coaches to help other people. And in today's episode, you will hear all about her backstory, how she went from this clinical psychologist to helping people with anxiety to now founding this coaching school, what functional medicine actually is, and why this might be the healthcare of the future. The difference between a functional medicine doctor and a functional medicine coach. What exactly does a health coach do, and why do we need them? What exactly is positive psychology, and why does she emphasize it so much when training coaches? Character strengths and why they're the building blocks for well-being. All about mind-body medicine connection, the psychology of eating, tips for a healthy relationship with food, and how and what a person eats is a window into their personality and life. And so much more. I'm so excited for you guys to dig into this episode. Please enjoy episode 78, Functional Medicine Coaching with Dr. Sandra Scheinbaum. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Witchy Wellness Radio. And again, I am your host, Lauren, and this is the show you get to learn your body is not in your way, but actually leading your way. And I'm so excited for our guest today, Dr. Sandra Scheinbaum. We're talking everything functional medicine. Welcome to the show today, Dr. Sandra.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. It is a pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited to jump in. We haven't really talked about functional medicine yet on Witchy Wellness. And for me, it's something that really has helped my own life. But before we get into the juice and the meat of everything, I just wanted to read a brief bio for you guys to get to know our guest a little bit better, because she is an amazing individual. But Dr. Sandra is a health and wellness practitioner and educator, and is passionate about transforming our broken healthcare system and empowering people to become their own CEOs of their health. Yes, that's what we're about here in Witchy Wellness. She believes that a great health coach is an ally that each of us needs to make healthy changes that actually will last. So she founded the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy in collaboration with the Institute for Functional Medicine, where her health coach certification program has trained over 1,500 coaches and counting. A clinical psychologist for over 35 years, she's an expert in positive psychology and mind-body medicine, and the author of Functional Medicine Coaching, Stop Panic Attacks, and 10 Easy Steps, and How to Give Clients the Skills to Stop Panic Attacks. Wow, you are with like-minded souls here. Oh my goodness. Quite an amazing career. I mean, oh my goodness. Just from your books alone, I would love to hear how you got into doing the work that you do today in functional medicine. There's always a beautiful backstory. There's always a hero's journey. And here in Witchy Wellness, we love a good story.
And that's how we learn, by
Yeah, that's how we
stories.
learn. Yeah.
Yeah, and each person's story is unique. So mine is long because I'm old, I'm 70, and I started out as a school teacher. And often where we start out is not where we end up. And I thought I was just going to be an elementary school teacher. I was really interested in kids with learning disabilities. So I went on and got my master's in learning disabilities. And I spent time as a classroom teacher for kids with learning disabilities and other learning challenges, and then taught teachers how to teach kids with special needs. And as a result of that work, I was starting to get interested in stress management, which we weren't really talking about at the time in terms of mind-body medicine and different approaches to managing stress. So I started leading groups for parents, and that led to, well, go back and get my doctorate in clinical psychology. And then for many years, I had a practice in psychology. And I was always a renegade, because when psychology was all about what's wrong with you, and you need to be in therapy for life and talk about your terrible mother and other childhood experiences, I was focusing on what's right with somebody, which then came to be known as positive psychology. And I was also really, really interested in mind-body medicine. How does the mind and body work together? Which at the time, late 70s, early 80s, this, believe it or not, was considered a radical concept. And so I was discovering, as I worked with more and more people, oh, I can teach some breathing techniques, and wow, they're less anxious, or their headaches are improving, or their irritable bowels getting better just by breathing. Who knew? And pairing that with imagery, I did a lot of work with imagery and looking at, again, all of the different modalities that are what we call mind-body medicine. I was also interested in nutrition. It always fascinated me on a personal level because I struggled with eating issues. I started binging on sugar when I left for college, and that didn't stop through my 20s. And so I was interested in the link between nutrition and mood. So started really looking in that area, psychology of eating, which then I taught courses in. And I heard about functional medicine and like, what's this? Went to a conference and I was hooked, because this was a systems approach, as we'll get into the details, that really puts all the pieces together. And so I trained in functional medicine with the Institute for Functional Medicine, and then went back to my roots in teaching, decided, well, I have all of this prior training and experience in all of these approaches to wellness. What if we put them all together and created a coaching program? And we had been hearing from people who had trained at other coaching schools that they just felt like they wanted more. They were intrigued by functional medicine. So then I went to IFM, Institute for Functional Medicine, and basically pitched that idea. And so there's a saying in business and marketing: the more open you are to a no, the more likely you'll get a yes. And so took a chance. And my co-founder, Elise, and I went to IFM, and they were interested. And so we entered into a collaboration agreement, and that was 5 years ago. And we now have actually over 3,000 graduates, and growing around the world. And that's my mission and purpose in life. And so when I started FMCA, I was 65, and everybody who was in my circle of friends, they were all retired, and they were looking forward to a life of leisure, playing cards, playing canasta's really popular. And I said, no, I'm not that person that's going to do that. That's not me. And I have the strong mission to help people to live optimally. And so that's what I get up every day inspired to do. And because I'm so mission driven, anything that will help that is what I will pursue, including really close attention to my own self-care, my fitness regimen, what I eat, because if I veer from that, then I won't be able to serve my mission.
Wow. If anything has not been ever so true, I, you know, go through that in my own life is how can I better show up for myself? Because if I'm not excited and getting out of bed every day with that joy, there's something wrong, right? You need to be doing that passionate work, but also take that responsibility to take care of yourself, mind, body, and soul. And, this year I thought it would be easier. We all had the excuses of most of us now working from home and the majority of this year of, I just didn't have enough time to take care of myself before. And my partner and I were saying, during this unprecedented time, if you haven't grown or healed or changed or done something different, then that's something, to look at. But growing that positive thing, like you were saying, in positive psychology, rather than, focusing on the bad. Yeah, I love your story. Thank you for showing up for you and all your beautiful students now. I need to update my copy for over 3,000 people. I'm familiar with functional medicine. It intrigues me. When I actually need to go to a physician locally, I look for people who are functional medicine certified. But for the listeners who might not know what functional medicine is and why it may be different than a lot of other Western medicine, could you kind of give us a short breakdown of what functional medicine is?
Sure. So there's two ways I want to begin to describe it. One, I just heard from Dr. Jeffrey Bland, who is the father of functional medicine, one of the original founders of IFM. What he was talking about was, when we think of medicine, most physicians would think about something that is to treat an illness. And they're looking at that as the organizing system. When we hear people speak about what they want for what health means to them, they're not saying health means no diabetes, no autoimmune conditions. Health means I want to be able to play with my grandkids. I want to have energy every day, to be able to do the things that I want to do, to garden, to dance, whatever it might be. And what are those things? They're functions. And so functional medicine, in a nutshell, is about looking at function. And what do we do to get there? So it's a systems-based approach. So within us, we have systems. We have a cardiovascular system. We have an immune system, for example, digestive system, and they're not in isolation. They talk to one another. They're communicating, and symptoms don't just arise in isolation. And so functional medicine is the medicine of why. Why do I have depression? Why do I have irritable bowel? Why do I have eczema at this time? And typically you would have a doctor for each one of those issues. But in functional medicine, we would say, okay, what ties it together? Could it be inflammation? Looking at the root cause and then addressing that root cause. And the answer is typically starting with diet, lifestyle change, and then going on up from there. And so it's not an either or, because Western medicine, say conventional medicine, is important. If you are having a heart attack, you want to have the best treatment. You want to get to the ER, and acute care is what you need. If, on the other hand, you have type 2 diabetes, that's where conventional medicine often falls short. It's not treated in the doctor's office or in the emergency room. Where is it treated? In the grocery store, on the walking path, where people are given that sense that they can make those changes. That's where it has to happen. And so that's what I'm so excited about, because coaches are the one that can be with those individuals to guide them to make those changes.
And my next question I was going to ask, but I think you already answered it. why is functional medicine so important in healthcare, the future of healthcare in general? Could you kind of dive into that and also maybe speak to the difference between having, a physician, but also functional medicine coach?
Sure. So right now, the conventional approach is like the end stage care. It's treating the symptoms. And in those cases of chronic diseases, so let's take type 2 diabetes or metabolic syndrome, which are pre-diabetes, when you're on your way, these are epidemic. It's like a tsunami of disease. And we are facing a healthcare crisis where the cost of treating it is just spiraling out of control. And we're seeing increasing numbers and younger people. Type 2 used to be called adult onset. Now, pediatricians are dealing with this. So it's a serious issue. And functional medicine is the way to address it. We are also seeing people who have the worst outcomes, complications from COVID-19 often are those who suffer from obesity, type 2 diabetes. And so having what Dr. Bland calls that we have a pandemic within the pandemic. And it's those conditions that functional medicine is best suited for. Why? Because they're not treated by, I broke my arm and I'm going to go and to get x-rayed. Yeah, you have a broken arm. And then they get a cast and that's it. But in functional medicine, we are looking at this is diet and lifestyle change. And that's where the coach enters, because the doctors often don't have the time or the training in behavior change to really be with somebody to help them feel confident, to help them overcome obstacles, hold them accountable. And that's where the coach steps in. The coach is like your personal cheerleader, and they are the ones who can help you through that process. It's one tiny change at a time, celebrating those tiny wins, feeling inspired, being held accountable. If you know that you're going to have a call or a Zoom meeting with your coach tomorrow, well, maybe you'll think twice about overeating at dinner or choices you're going to have for dinner, because you know that you're going to have that conversation with a coach. And coaching is totally client-centered. What does that mean? Well, the reason it's so effective is it's non-judgmental. You know that even if, let's say, you do overeat at dinner or have that extra piece of cake when you said you wouldn't, and if you talk to your coach, they're not going to judge you. They're not going to be like the doctor dictator or somebody who's going to judge you, even though that person may not do that in reality, but they're trained to be the expert. They're trained to tell you what to do. And we can't just do it. It's hard. Change is hard. You need somebody who is totally there with you, who can listen to you and understands you.
Agreed. And that brings it back to your psychology background, that positive psychology, right?
Yes.
And a coach is there to hold you accountable, but help walk you through maybe when you did fall off track, what was happening, what sparked you to want to overeat or eat that piece of chocolate cake. And with any life change, a coach is so valuable. I know I always have a coach or a therapist or somebody to help hold me accountable, but to be that beautiful mirror, like you were saying, that non-judgmental mirror, to say, hey, that's okay. Let's take a look back at the bigger bird's eye view. And I mean, if you truly want to change in some area like that you have, in the past had struggled with, really want to hold accountable, I mean, a coach is definitely a way to go. So if you're interested in getting a coach, especially a functional medicine coach, what would be the procedure for finding one? I'm sure you guys have a directory, or can you get referred from a physician?
Yes, so both of those
Yeah.
ways are great, and the field is growing, and so there's certain things you want to be aware of. So we as a school are approved so that our graduates can sit for the national board exam, and so you may want to look at somebody who is nationally board certified. So that just shows they have met the minimum standards that we all agree on, and they've passed that rigorous exam. And you could go to our website, which is functionalmedicinecoaching.org. We have a Find a Coach, and you can find one. It is not necessary. It used to be people would want to do this live, and now this may not be possible for you. And you can have sessions virtually, and the research is showing those are just as effective, and it's easier. You could be at home in your pajamas and you can have a coaching session. So that's one way. Another way, which we train our coaches, and that's growing, is they may have groups to offer you. And then you feel like you're not alone. So let's say you had a piece of cake, and you're feeling this whole range of emotions. Well, maybe in the group you would find, oh yeah, you're not alone there, and they would recount similar experiences. And so the group itself is healing. And when you have an opportunity also to give back and support somebody else in the group, that is also healing. So that could be another model to look at, and often that makes coaching more affordable. So either way, one-to-one sessions as well as group, and coaching is a much more affordable model than going to expensive medical care. So often coaches, whether they're working on their own or they're in a functional medicine practice, will have a functional medicine doctor that you might work with. You might start out with a consultation, and then the coach takes it from there.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's always nice to know different options. And sometimes I think the group coaching sessions, at least for me, holds me even more accountable, because it's not just my coach I'm
Yes. Yeah,
it's that
so
peer
true.
group mentality, and my inner perfectionist always comes out a little bit in a good way in those instances. But I wanted to kind of retarget back to your positive psychology, and I know this is implemented through your coaching school that you guys have for functional medicine. This year, a lot of people are realizing how much stress and maybe anxiety, whether it's COVID-19. We just recently got done with the election. There was very high tension in the air. Back to managing stress, because as you and I know, a lot of the lifestyle choices, including stress management, affects your mind-body connection, your mind-body health. What are some maybe symptoms people might not be realizing that they are maybe more stressed out, and some ways to refocus, with that positive psychology, or something a functional medicine coach could help you with?
Sure. So I like to think of stress and in terms of stressors. So that is continuous. It's just, there's an infinite number of possibilities. So we could be having this conversation, and if I decided I was worried that the ceiling was going to fall down, or I was worried that I'm looking at a light from the camera, what's that doing to my eyes? Or there's a number of things that our minds could go to, or I might think, how am I doing? Am I being articulate enough? Am I pleasing the audience? Am I saying the right things? So we choose how we want to upset ourselves, what we're going to focus on. And so we focus in our coach training, and the whole idea of positive psychology has to do with resiliency. What's a life well lived? And what are the characteristics of people who have a lot of joy in their life? And it turns out that it is based on these character strengths, which we all have. And they are, you mentioned one, which is perspective. So you can zoom out and you can see, instead of hyper focusing on one tiny detail, like today, let's take that cake example. So let's say you're really upset. Oh, I blew it. What's wrong with me? I'm hopeless. I'll never control my eating. But zoom out. And you're maybe not accounting for all the days that you ate and you did not overeat or eat something that you don't want to eat. So, or the fact that you can start over again. You can start every moment as we go into the future is a new opportunity. What did you learn? You could look at it a different perspective. And so other character strengths are things like gratitude, which we know a lot and tied to physical wellness. Forgiveness is one, kindness, bravery, humor, love of learning, creativity. So there are strengths that are part of us, and they lead to well-being. And so when we are what we call signature strengths, when we're there, it feels good. And we're thriving. So for me, it's zest, for example. So I'm standing right now because that zest is one of my top character strengths. I always have a lot of energy and I like to be moving around. It's also a lot of joy for life. Having meaning and purpose, having something that you're achieving at, even if it's small, like, oh, I made my bed this morning. So those are all ways to deal with stress.
Beautiful. We like to say around our household, count your wins for the day. And it starts with getting out of bed and making that bed and brushing your teeth right away. Those are two big wins that you can have right away.
Yes, exactly.
Every single day.
So, yep. And so when you are using your strengths, and if you want to know what they are, there are 24 of them, and you have all of them. And you can go to a nonprofit. We work closely with them called VIA, V-I-A. And you can take their survey. It's free. You can go to viacharacter.org, and you can take this survey. The cool news is that they have a version for kids as well. So you start identifying strengths, looking at strengths within you and in others. You do strengths spotting and becoming really aware. So mindfulness is tied into that, and that is really important. So where you place your attention, if you place your attention on what you did well, as opposed to what is not going so well. I heard something wonderful by my friend Jim Quick, who is Quick Learning, and he said, instead of having a to-do list, have a to-learn list. And so if you have a sense of openness, willingness to, what do you want to learn today? Or what did you learn today? And every experience would be learning. So perhaps you learned through this pandemic that you could cope with so much more than you thought you could. And so do an assessment of every day. How are you using perseverance? How are you using courage, creativity? Maybe you combined ingredients to discover something new now that perhaps if you're doing more cooking. So look at ways that you have adjusted, accommodated, and perhaps at the beginning of this, you would have thought, oh, I couldn't possibly cope with this. And now you are.
And now you are. Beautiful. I know we touched a little bit earlier about MindBody Medicine. It's all about what we love talking about here, but could you give us a little brief overview of what that means?
Sure. Well, in a nutshell, it means that mind and body are connected. So every thought, every experience, every time you have a thought, every time you experience an emotion, that would be, let's say, that's the mind. And there are neural pathways and there are connections. So it's communicating. Your heart is a master communicator that sends signals back up to your brain and that communicates with your digestive tract. So let's say you're feeling tense. Well, you might start by taking a belly breath. And as you do that, and as you exhale, what I like to do is imagine it's warm. This comes from heart rate variability training. And as you imagine the warmth of that exhale, perhaps you imagine that warmth going up to your heart. What does that say to you? The heart is the center of love. And so now that heartwarming feeling, you might want to extend it. Perhaps you want to extend it to a part of your body that needs a little extra love and warmth, or perhaps you want to send it out into the universe to people who you would like to send those warm wishes wishes to. So what you're doing now is you're connecting. It started with the breath, and now you're creating a profound calming effect. And as you're calming the body, you're calming your mind. And it's also the muscular system gets involved. So if you are angry, for example, what do people do? Well, you might tense, your shoulders are raised, your head like you're ready to fight, maybe clenching your fist. And now you start, I'm going to soften. So you start by readjusting your posture, opening up your chest, and lifting your chest. And so then your shoulders naturally fall down. That way, give you more confidence. As Amy Cuddy says, you do that Superwoman power pose. And if you're giving a talk, that is shown, you can feel more power that way. It could also go in reverse. So let's say that angry thought, oh, wow, he shouldn't have done this. This is terrible. I can't stand this. This is awful, horrible. It shouldn't be happening. So maybe you're thinking those things, you're really upset. And now you interrupt it and you say, well, it's disappointing, but it'll blow over. What's the worst thing that can happen? What would happen if I changed perspectives? Do I really want to feel this way? How is this helping or hurting me? Now you shift, and just the act of rethinking and shifting your thinking, you might find, oh, I have changed my physiology. And years ago, I specialized in biofeedback. So I worked with a lot of kids and adults where we would have ways to measure. So they would be wearing these little thermistors on their fingertips. So as they changed that thinking from, I can't stand this, this is awful, horrible, terrible, to it's bearable, it'll pass, what is bringing me joy in life? What would happen if I focus there as opposed to the situation? And then they look at the screen and they find, wow, I just raised my fingertip temperature 5 degrees just in changing that thinking pattern. It's just amazing when it becomes apparent, like on a screen, and you get that evidence. And then they're so aware that, yeah, the mind and body talk to one another in both directions.
Oh, yeah. I got into all of this because of my own anxiety, my own digestive issues, and realizing I could eat my body's weight in kale on all the green food, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter.
Yes.
Until I was able to tap into my autonomic nervous system, tune into the rest and restore, step out of that fight and flight. And all that takes is we take 3 deep breaths before we eat our meal.
Yes.
As a family. Sometimes longer.
Yeah.
That's it.
So powerful. And even just slowing down your breath, because we rush through everything. I'm so guilty of that. I could talk fast and eat fast and move fast. And sometimes just starting with the breath and take a really, really slow breath. They've studied people who are meditating or they're praying, and naturally they will slow the breath down to about 4 breaths per minute. And so you can just count this. You can count the seconds. You want to maybe start with like 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out, or 5 and 5, whatever suits you. And then just that alone, you'll notice, and you're feeling better. And so especially before you start a meal, because often we just sit down and we're not even aware, or we're multitasking, answering emails at the same time we're eating, not even aware. And that's often how we overeat. We're not tasting our food. We're not chewing well. That's tied into digestive issues.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I never, I'm sure you know, I can't remember. I think it's like every bite of food you should be chewing like 20 times.
Yeah, 20, 25 times.
If you actually sit and do that, you will be amazed how much lack of chewing you actually
Totally
have. Oh my goodness, that blows me away. So speaking of food and relationships with food, and you are an expert of psychology of eating, what are some tips for all of us, in addition to mind-body connection, like breathing, that you can share for developing a healthy relationship with food?
Sure. Well, first of all, be aware that you are not alone in terms of relationship with food. And so many people keep it hidden if they're overeating. I was a binge eater for many years with sugar. I was actually one who would, like, I would have pints of ice cream or bags of cookies, and then enough. I'm so full. Throw it in the garbage, and then, well, a couple hours later, oh, it didn't really hit the garbage. It's still in its wrapper. And so this, first of all, sugar is addictive. It's a physical addiction. We know that sugar is more addictive than crack cocaine. And so for me, I have to quit cold turkey. I can't just have a little bit of dessert because then I will crave it for days. So know what type of eater you are, and also know that it is linked to your personality. It's linked to, there are differences in terms of peers. We know we tend to eat like our friends, and so it's often very hard to choose a new way of eating if you're in a group of friends who don't eat that way. There's all this overlay with friends and family, with holidays especially, it plays out. So perhaps you're choosing a different way of eating. You're with family for the holidays and they don't understand. And oh, I cooked your favorite dish. I don't understand. There's a lot of hurt feelings. Or it works the opposite way, where let's say you go overboard because you're so excited and you're feeling so good, whether you're plant-based now or you're paleo or keto, whatever it might be. And now you want to tell the whole family or your friends, and they're sick of hearing it. And so there could be rifts there. So being aware of that, also being aware of the food industry. So they are spending billions of dollars to influence your eating choices and eating behaviors. And so everything that has a label. So if there's one thing you could do, it would be, as Michael Pollan says, if it has a health label, it probably isn't good for you. It's probably the exact opposite. So look at, really pays to look at that. I used to give talks years ago about sugar, and I would have a presentation where I would bring in cartons like of yogurt and show how many grams of sugar were in some of these things that are touted as health foods. So it'd be a lot of sugar. Even I used to love green juices and have them every day until I realized there's a lot of sugar in this juice.
Yeah, I even have my partner. He reads all the food labels now too, and anything packaged. He said, crap, you've got me trained too. I look for all the added sugars. And now they actually have, what was it, a few years ago when they updated the nutritional labels to make it even more digestible, if you will, the actual added sugars on top of the total sugars, which is helpful because I don't think people realize, there's a combination of salt, sugar, and fat in anything that is packaged, anything that is processed. There's food scientists that make that secret combination of the three to make it, hit your taste buds and satisfy you more, so you want to eat more. But yes. There's a really good book that's called I think it's Salt, Sugar, and Fat.
Yes, I think it was Michael Moss was the author.
It's very good.
Yes,
very
love
good
that book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think above all, it's not losing the joy of eating and eating with people you love, savoring good food, because sometimes we can go the opposite way. We get into what's called nutritionism, where we're only focused on how many macronutrients, how many micronutrients, and being, 100% adhering to a certain philosophy of eating, and a lot of just letting go, forgiving yourself and forgiving others. Because sometimes when we get into psychology of eating, we get into relationships where you might have a partner who eats differently, you might be getting into arguments, you can't change who somebody is. And so that can lead to a lot of issues in family dynamics. So if you have kids and you're trying to raise them to eat a certain way, I certainly learned the hard way with my daughters, as well as my husband, who also doesn't eat often as I would like, but I know all the fads. I remember the years of going through all the stages, like when I was 100% fat-free and arguing about this with people, family, for example. And of course, course, now we know that that was exactly the opposite of what's good for you. So theories are emerging and science is changing as we have better data. And so not to get too tied in to a particular theory. I think that people want to go all in. If a little is good, a lot must be better. And so sometimes you feel good, like let's say you've gone keto, you feel good, and now you go perhaps a little too overboard on it. And so looking again, always be open to what the science is telling us, because it'll change.
100%. And I think another Michael Pollan quote is, I think it's eat food, mostly plants, but not too much.
Yes, that's it. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that's how I live my life, because I've been there, done that. I've been the proud card carrying gluten-free vegan before in my lifetime. And, there's also another term for what you described as orthorexia.
Yes, exactly.
And it's a thing. And I know personality types like myself, it's like you were saying, it's all or nothing personality. And the lesson is really, like you said, being present, letting go of those labels. And, there's a whole, I don't say fad, there's a whole diet or lifestyle of slow eating. So you take the time just to be present with your food. And that's where a coach comes in handy to help you dissect or move through maybe what are those underlying things that are making you eat the way you want to as well. Because sometimes things come up when you, like we said, functional medicine, mind-body connection. When you change your lifestyle diet, something else might come up, and it's all connected. Just like you said, this is just a symptom of the root cause.
Absolutely. That was so well said. And it's being very, very mindful of what you're eating, when you're eating, how you're eating, and do you even want food at that time? Are you eating for some other reason? Somebody said, well, if you're so hungry that, you're going to eat, you just can't stop eating that broccoli, then you're truly hungry. But if you are craving, some carb or that, well, maybe that's a craving. Maybe that's based on something else and not, true hunger.
Exactly. I am a bored eater and an anxious eater. I noticed that even today. And I said, all right, drink a glass of water, wait 15 minutes. And if you're hungry, you can have 2 clementines, or you can have a banana or something with sugar in it. And then after I drink a glass of water, wasn't hungry. So it's just being present with yourself. And also tricks like, it takes how many minutes once you start chewing, that's when the digestion process starts, and actually you're able to communicate to your stomach like what's coming down. But it takes a while from when you're actually eating for your body actually to know when it's full as well. Is it about like 15, 20 minutes?
It's about 20 minutes, yeah. And there's also a saying that it's the pleasure, this is in the first taste. The first bite is where you savor it. So if you imagine having something really yummy, and it's that first bite that you savor. Let's keep going back to that chocolate cake. Let's assume it is the most delicious, flourless chocolate cake, and you can't wait to have a piece. Well, if you savor that first forkful and really are aware and just the whole sensation of it, you might find that that's enough, as opposed to eating mindlessly and you ate the whole thing, and by the time you are finishing it, you've lost that sensation, that taste, that pleasure of the taste. And that's been well documented.
100%. And I do that when I do actually eat sweets. That's exactly what I do. I say, I am the best chocolate cake eater there is. And sometimes I even will get into it and like make nice ming noises while I eat it, because it makes it fun too. On top of savoring it, it breaks you out of that I need this chocolate cake mentality. It gets you, like you were saying, that bigger perspective of like, life is really not this serious, But we've talked so much about how health coaches could be helpful for potential clients. But I would love to kind of flip it the last few minutes of the show and talking about, health coaching is a rapidly exploding new career. Now I do more wellness and like mindfulness coaching, but it's something that I've loved doing for years now. If people are listening to this and are intrigued, they're already on this mind-body connection train in functional medicine, how can they get into this field of functional health coaching?
The field needs you. It really is exploding, what we saw with the pandemic. People are waking up to being interested about their health, worried about their health. And for the first time, they are thinking about prevention. And so they are flocking to prevention, to health coaches to work on that with them. And so we're seeing a big uptake in uptick in people wanting coaches, people wanting to be coaches. And that doesn't mean the field is saturated. We need so many coaches because more and more medical practices are hiring. Major centers like Amazon they have programs now for their employees where they're employing health coaches. Programs like Fitbit is offering coaching along with some of the new products, their watches that they're rolling out. And so we're just seeing an explosion of this. And so the good news is that often people ask me, well, what do I need? What's the criteria to be a coach? And you don't need to have any background in healthcare. In fact, often if you do have a background, you might have to work a bit harder to overcome that training. So we have in our program about 50% of people who come to us, they're from a healthcare field. They've been nurses, medical doctors, they've been dietitians, nutritionists, and often, especially the doctors, they struggle because they're so used to being experts. And now they're training in a coach approach, which is different. And people who are complete newbies, so about 50% of the people who come to us are career changers. They may be stay-at-home moms. They may be retired. We get a lot of people who are retiring from teaching. We have people who are just burned out in their current work, or they've been disrupted by the pandemic. And so they are out of work and looking at what can they do that will feed their soul. And with this field, you don't have to do an abrupt switch too. So we have many people who are coaching on the side. So they're still nurses, or they're still working in their companies and whatever they may be doing, whether it's marketing or law, accounting, and they're working in that job, and then they're coaching on the side, seeing a few clients, and then maybe gradually they will make that switch. We do support people in how to build a business, and we have a whole business building track. So it's an exciting field, and we welcome more coaches. And the National Board for Health and Wellness Coaching is working with the American Medical Association to look at a path to insurance reimbursement. That started already with a certain category of codes that they're starting to track. So this is a field that is growing, and it's also achieving a whole lot of credibility in the world.
And I know for myself, once you feel so whole with yourself, whatever journey, growth you're on, whether it's health or something other than that, all you want to do is give.
Exactly.
You want to give back.
And that's a common thread. So everybody, no matter where they're coming from, what background they have, everybody who comes to us to train to be a coach has a strong desire to be heard, to help people be heard. They're strong listeners, and they have a strong mission and purpose. They want to serve others. Another common thread is often having a healthcare crisis themselves. They've been there. They have a story to tell, and they want to now help others not have to suffer. And so with our program, they learn the whole functional medicine approach, and they learn positive psychology and mind-body medicine. And most people say this is a personal transformation as well. So they came in to us thinking, oh, I'm just going to learn this so I can go out and help others. But then they report when they graduate, well, yeah, I learned that, but it transformed my life. Like, I have a different perspective. I have made inroads in my health status or my family, or I'm helping them as well. They're changing. So it's a whole system. And so we know when you help somebody or when you help yourself, it spreads. It's a ripple effect, and others around you have that opportunity to heal as well.
And I truly believe you have to follow that bliss, follow your heart, and that's how the world changes, is just taking those little steps for yourself, little steps to help other people. This is in the new world where cooperation and love and, sharing your heart is a foundation. And it begins with me. A quote that I think about all the time is, if you want to change the world, change yourself first. And that ripple effect, like you talked about, is endless.
So true.
Well, I would love to talk so much longer, but was there anything else you wanted to cover or wrap up before we close out the show today?
Well, there is a saying that I always used to talk about, and that is, what's real in the mind is real in the body. And so you create that in your mind. What do you dream about? Put yourself into the future. Where would you like to be? And then you start designing that dream, as Mary Morrissey says, and as Lisa Sasevich says, don't settle for a woulda, coulda, shoulda life. And so if there are dreams that you have, now is the time to go forward towards fulfilling those.
Beautiful. Oh, makes my heart so happy. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Dr. Sandra. Aww. And we end the show, every show, thanking you for not only showing up for us today, but also for yourself and your beautiful, beautiful ripple effect of now over 3,000 coaches and the people they help. That's just the ripple. I'm getting chills. I can't even think about the math right now. But thank you. And how may we, the listeners, as an act of gratitude, be of service for you in return today?
Give the gift of coaching. Go to functionalmedicinecoaching.org. Perhaps you can find a coach if you're struggling with something. You may want to find a coach for a loved one, or perhaps you feel inspired to look at health coaching as something you might want to train in because the world needs you. Or if you know somebody who would make a good coach, spread the word.
Beautiful. Thank you again for coming on the show today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to talk with you.
And remember, open up, surrender, trust, and let your body lead the way.